Hey y'all, I'm going to show you today how to download, set up, and program TGMacro for first time use. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to the TGM Discord and go to website official. Here, click one of the three links. I'm going to go to gettgmacro.com, which I have open here. Click download, click download, click download, and wait for it to download. Here it is. So if you open it, you'll see it right here. I like to create a folder inside of my documents folder for TGMacro. So I'm just going to open this zip file, extract that stuff into this folder I made inside of documents, but you can drag it really anywhere as long as it's not inside of the zip file. Now you are ready to use or open TGMacro for the first time. So when you launch it, you will see just the patch notes, the version numbers, and stuff. You'll also get a warning here that you need to associate TGM files to TGMacro. Definitely click yes onto that. Additionally, it'll tell you that you need to launch TGMacro as an administrator and only download it from approved sites. Here's the administrator warning. So I'll show you right now how to open TGMacro as an admin. You just got to right click it, go to properties, go to compatibility, and check this box. Run this program as an administrator. Hit apply, hit OK. And now it'll do this. You'll have to click yes on the box that pops up. And you can dismiss that. And now TGMacro is open. From here, you can either create new macros or you can use a macro that you have downloaded. If you want to see how to download one, you just go back into Discord, go to either macro sharing or confirmed macro sharing, and download one. I'm just going to download this one. Went in my downloads folder. I'm going to move it over to my document folder here. Lovely. Windows is being goofy. There it is. So from here, there's two ways to open this file. You can either go to File, Open, and then navigate to that within the Documents folder, or you have to close TGMacro, and as long as you associated the TGM to TGMacro, you can just double-click this, and it'll open the macro within TGMacro. From here, we can show you really what the user interface of TGMacro is all about. We'll start with just the file here. This is how you open new macro files. So anything you've saved previously or anything you've downloaded, that's how you open it. If you make your own or modify someone else's, make sure to save it or save as. Save it will just overwrite the old one. Save as will save a new copy of it. Import macro project lets you import files that were made with specific other macro applications. And within help here, there's all sorts of options. We'll get into that later, or we won't, but you can dive in there later if you want. If we go into the settings here, you can see that there are a few things like enable on start, which will make the macro enabled when the program launches. Load last macro on start. So when you open the open TGMacro, it'll open up the macro you had open previously. Turn on and off sounds, hide the Discord buttons. Virtual key mode is something I'd avoid unless you're experiencing issues. You can enable or disable controller inputs if you'd like. And ignore self inputs, which are a feature I've not played around with. Under performance here, we have legacy mode as a toggle and a KPS, which is an input limit. Legacy mode, again, should be avoided unless you're having issues or using a macro that was made with a older version of TGMacro. The KPS here, this is key presses per second. 120 is the default here, as you can see. That is very quick. It is far quicker, by an order of magnitude quicker than any human can ever press. So that should meet almost any needs you have, but if you want to increase it, you can increase it. Just keep in mind that while it's increased, the higher you go, the more strain it'll put on your computer. You can also set it to 0, and it will run as quickly as your computer can possibly handle the inputs. In here, you can enable set TGMacro's default for TGM files, which we already did. So that'll just make it so when you double click a TGM file, it opens up in TGMacro. In here, you can simply change the shortcuts to enable the system or to record a new macro from inside the settings. So we're going to hit save to save those settings if you want to. And we're going to look at this screen. In here, it's relatively self-explanatory. You have the name, you have some settings. You can change legacy or KPS, or you can disable a macro by a keybind all through this. But if you just click that, it won't look at any of these settings, and it'll just follow the settings that were set in the TGMacro program. But if you enable this, it'll look at this and overwrite what's in the other settings right here. So, trigger by. That means that is how the application is knowing to run the commands here in the action editor. Generally, you'll be doing keystrokes or button inputs, which is the default option. That just means when you press the trigger or bind key, which is currently set to X on this macro, when you hit X, or loop says while holding X, it'll press I, press O, or press and release I, press and release O, and it'll do that infinitely while you're holding the X key. If we change this to until pressed again, when X is pressed down, it'll press I, press O, and stop and not run it again, even if you're holding it. If you... Oh, I misunderstood that. Sorry. Until key pressed again. That is a toggle. So you hit X and it'll repeat this infinitely until you press X again, and then it'll disable it. Not disable, but it'll stop doing it. Once when key pressed and once when key released is just if you press the trigger key, it'll run this once. The difference being that pressed is on the downstroke and released is on the upstroke. So as you press down X, it'll trigger, or if you let go of the X key, it'll trigger if it's unreleased. To set the trigger key, you literally just click it and then click whatever key you want. I just set it to E. And if you're just using a macro, that's really all you need to know. You honestly don't even need to know that stuff, but it's good to know in case you need to make small changes. If you're trying to modify macros, record actions is a good way to start. Inside of here, you have 4 toggle boxes to have the record function either record mouse movement, mouse buttons, so the clicks or the scroll wheels, keyboard keys, and the delays between every key press. In here, mouse position capture has 2 options: save current position or save position difference. These two are essentially absolute versus relative, meaning if you have your position set to save current position and you set it to right here, every time you trigger the macro, wherever your mouse is, it'll snap right there. But if you have save position differences on, it'll basically track how far your mouse moves in each direction while you're recording. So save position difference is useful if you are looking around. Save current position is useful if you're clicking UI elements on a screen that are always in the same exact spot. Over on the action editor here, this is how you manipulate the macro program. So let's, for example, say I didn't want this to press I, then press O. I wanted this to press I and then press Q. I can do that. So I just double clicked it. Or you could hit the dots and edit it, and it'll bring up the screen. There's also quite a few other options. Mouse movement, self-explanatory. It's mouse movement. You can either move it to a position, or you can move it to, or move it a certain amount of pixels. For move to position, if you want to tell it where to go, you can either enter the coordinates manually, or you can hold Alt and press X, like that. So now you can see the coordinates on my screen there, right there. So now if I ran the macro, it would snap the mouse right there in between. It'd press I, press Q, then snap the mouse there. You also have mouse keyboard keys, which are what the I and Q are. But an important thing to notice is there are a few options here. You have press and release, press and hold, or release. Both these functions are press and release. You can tell because it has a down arrow and an up arrow, as in it presses and then releases. But if you have press and hold, you'll have just a down arrow. That's useful if you want to, let's say, hold Alt and then press Q. So we can move Q down here. And then I can Alt, release. Now I press Alt and hold it, press Q, and then release Alt. You can have it input text blocks, or just like segments of text. Action groups are a more complicated feature. You can look at other videos to figure out how that works. Waiting until color is neat. It gives you two options, either matches or doesn't match. So like, let's say I wanted to wait for a green light to pop up. I could go over the green color and hold Alt and press C to select the green color, which isn't there obviously, but and then I'll do where I want the green color to show up. So if this coordinate turns that color, it'll proceed in a macro. Or if you do not matches, it'll look at this coordinate, and if it is not this color, it'll proceed. But if it is that color, it'll stop and wait until it's not that color. You can also have it do use cursor position, so it'll look where the mouse is, and if the mouse isn't that color or is that color, it'll proceed and go to the next steps. I just selected it and clicked the delete function. Simple enough. You can also move things up and down. You can add delays between everything. So if things are running too quickly and you wanted to add 100 milliseconds, so a 1/10 of a second delay. Oh, my bad. That modifies delays. You'd still need to add the delays yourself, which are easy enough. So if I wanted to add a 100 millisecond delay, I could go there. I could duplicate it. Oh, that's an action group. I could duplicate it and move it between each action. And then I could modify it with this. So if I wanted to reduce it to 50, I could do -50 to subtract 50 by 100, and all the delays are 50 seconds or 50 milliseconds. Okay, I think that's about everything on this screen that is relevant. So I will get off of that. No, don't save. Or sure, whatever. In here, there's also two important functions. One is that each macro can be enabled or disabled. You can tell if a macro is enabled or disabled by the color of it. So this macro is enabled, and if I click it, it grays out and is disabled. This is useful if you have multiple macros. Just create a random blank macro right there. So like, let's say I want to use only this one and not that one right now. I can click it and it'll only run color macro there. Now, if I don't want to run any macro because I'm doing something else right now and I just want to have the program open but not running anything, you can either click this button to be red, or you can hit the home button, which will disable the system. So now if I press A or X, as you can see here, it doesn't run anything. Another function is this lock key, which is useful if you want to make sure this application stays always on top. For example, if we open Discord, lock it, now I could open up Discord and run stuff in here. TGMacro will always stay on top, even if I'm interacting with a different window, like normal, which it would just disappear. I think that is about everything. Always make sure to save your macro when you're done with it, if you made any changes. If you have any questions, please just submit a ticket on the Discord or ask in the general chat, and we'll help you out if you can. Thanks.